In this episode of Biz Jet TV, we're going to talk about the advantages of private jet charter. Should I charter and how do I go about it? And when is it convenient to charter and when is it not convenient to charter? These are kind of the subjects of today's episode. My name is Fabrizio. I'm your aviation advisor, the founder here of Biz Jet TV, and also the author of The Quantum Economy. This is definitely a book, if you're in business, that you need to get yourself and read. Lots of information in here about private jet travel, about the economies of the future, where to go, the emerging markets, and how private jet is and will be playing a key role in building the quantum economy. So let's get into today's episode. So what kind of people charter a private jet? Well, if you're flying, you've got to travel anywhere between 20 to 40 hours a year. You're making between $5 to $10 million a year, then private jet travel is certainly something you need to be looking at doing. Now, charters can cost you anything from $15,000 all the way up to $400,000, $500,000, depending on what type of airplane you're chartering and where you're going. Now, why am I the person you should listen to? Well, we've got over 900 videos here on YouTube that you can check, or check us out on Instagram, on TikTok, or just get yourself a copy of The Quantum Economy and judge for yourself if I know what I'm talking about. So I've been in this industry a long time, over 35 years. I'm an airline transport pilot. I've flown private jets, a number of them, for different outfits around the world, and I've also flown for a number of airlines around the world, flown with 65 different nationalities, and I've got an extensive network which covers the whole globe. So I have an understanding of flight safety, which is the big issue when you charter a private jet. Now, the first thing I'd say is, if you're thinking of charging a private jet, please don't go on the apps that you can find on the internet and try and find the best deal, as in the cheapest deal. Because what people don't understand and what people don't know, and I talk about this in my book, The Quantum Economy, is that private jet travel is 9.2 times more dangerous than airline flying. So if you jump on a Swiss flight, Lufthansa, Delta, United, Singapore Airlines, you're going to be a lot safer than if you charter a Learjet from London to Paris, for example. And this is something that a lot of people don't understand. Everybody approaches air travel with the low-cost model. I mean, they go on these websites and they look for the cheapest airfare. Okay, but when you're going with the airlines are regulated in a slightly different way. The pilots are trained in a certain way. With private jets, a lot of the private jet operators cut a lot of corners. Now, why does this happen? This happens because these airplanes don't fly as often. But there are a bunch of operators out there that actually do things safely and do things in a certain way. And so when I charter planes out for my clients, I always go down the route of using this small list that I've compiled over the years of operators that I use and trust. And you call me up and I'll set you up with something that's safe. But the other thing you could do is also buy a block of hours. And again, I can offer you the block of hours. We can look at where you're going, whatever, find the right airplane, and then buy a block of maybe 100 hours or even 50 hours on a certain airplane that you would use for charters. Now, what is the advantage of flying charter is that you can fly, for example, from a lot of secondary airports. And this is where you can bring the price down. If you're going to try and fly into Frankfurt, Maine, for example, the landing fees there are expensive, or even London City, landing fees there are expensive. That's going to increase the price of your charter. So there are ways of bringing the price slightly down. But, if you are going to charter a private jet, you shouldn't be thinking, oh, I need to save money. Okay, you're using the private jet because it's a business tool, because it's going to get you out the local airport, which is near where you live, for example. You go in, get on the airplane, up in the air in 10-15 minutes. You don't get that when you fly with the airlines. You are in control of the airplane in the sense that, if you're running half an hour late, you just ring the pilots, you tell them, they wait for you. If you're flying with the airlines, you can't ring the airline and say, I'm going to be half an hour late, can you wait for me? Because there's other 190 passengers getting on that flight. And if you're late, guess what? You lose the flight, you've got to buy another ticket. So there's lots of disadvantages when you're flying with the airlines. But if you've got the kind of money I mentioned, you're making $5 to $10 million a year, you should start looking at flying private. And the best way to start is to start by doing some charters, or alternatively buying a block of hours. And I can help you, get that deal for you anywhere in the world, because as I said, my network is worldwide, and find you something that's going to work. And you will start using the private jet as a business tool. You start by chartering, you get your feet wet with a private jet, with private jet charters. You get to understand how the private jet can really bring you into the quantum economy. It's a good way to start by chartering, buying a block of hours, and then maybe leasing an aircraft, which will be exclusive to you. So you could lease a plane for 6 months. That's another thing that I can arrange. The beauty of leasing is you don't have to buy the aircraft. You don't have all that cost and risk of buying an aircraft. You just lease it for a certain period of time, and that airplane is purely dedicated to you and your team. And there's a great advantage there because you know the airplane's sitting in the hangar. It's available 24/7. You can spring into action at short notice. You can use the airplane yourself, but the other power factor of the private jet is using it to go and pick people up to come and see you, and that's something that a lot of high net worth individuals do, and it does help you to accelerate your business. But this is what the private jet really does. When you go from airline travel to private jet travel, you are going to enter into the quantum economy. What I mean by quantum economy is you're going to start to accelerate the way you do things. You're going to have more flexibility, and also you're going to be more rested and ready to spring into action. Your performance is going to increase because you're getting on the airplane up in the air in 10 minutes, or if you're in the process of you're going through a meeting, you're not keep looking at your watch. If you think you're going to run a little bit late, you just ring the pilot and tell him to follow the flight plan or delay the flight plan by an hour, because you're going to take off a bit later. These are things you can do with private jet charter, which you can't do with the airlines. You're more in control of your air travel, and that's the big thing. But as I said before, safety is really, really important. You don't want to be paying 15 times more than airline travel, which is what it usually costs, and then risk your life because the maintenance hasn't been done properly, the pilots haven't been trained properly, haven't been selected properly. This is what's happening in the private jet charter world. There's a lot of cowboys out there, unfortunately, a lot of outfits out there that do a lot of marketing and advertising that you'd think they're really, really good, but some of these operators are working their pilots like crazy. There's one in particular which is quite famous out there, and they fly their pilots for like 22 days on the trot all the way around the world. And I've spoken to some of them, and they said, I wake up in the morning in a hotel room and I don't know if it's morning, afternoon, evening, and I don't even know where I am in the world. And then I suddenly read the name of the hotel and the location. Now I remember, okay, I'm in Chittagong in Bangladesh. Okay, now I recollect we arrived yesterday, and now we're going to Tokyo later on today. And so these pilots are flying around the world for 22 days, then they're allowed to go home for 5 or 6 days, because they reckon that in 5 or 6 days they can recover, and then they're back into another 22-day thing. And this is really, really terrible that they're doing this. It's also a big toll on the pilots, on their mental health. It's a big toll on creating fatigue in pilots, and a fatigued pilot is like a drunk pilot. And these are things that are happening in the private jet world, that you're out there and you go on these fancy apps, you book, I got a trip for $102,000 instead of $120,000, and off I go. And or you think how the operator works, but you have no inside knowledge. I mean, I've been in this industry 35 years. I've flown with pilots from all over the world. I can tell you what the standards are like in certain countries and aren't. And this is really, really important because your safety is key. The last thing you want to do is spend 15 times more money and risk 10 times more by flying on a private jet. You might as well just fly with the airlines, and just go to the airport 3 hours before, check in, airplane's going to be delayed, you get to your meeting late, whatever. You might as well live with that than live with the risk of dying. Or alternatively, what you can do is use somebody like myself, which can filter out all the bad operators and make sure that you get a safe trip on your private jet. Or alternatively, just lease an airplane or buy one. Then you have even more control. So what I'm basically saying is when you fly with the airlines, you have the lowest control of your air travel. Charter a private jet, you have a bit more control. Then you have leasing a private jet, and then you have owning a private jet where you have maximum control. So those are kind of the levels. So if you are thinking of flying private, and again, you're flying maybe 20 to 50 hours a year, you're making $5 to $10 million, now's the time for you to start to think about flying private, charter-wise. That will accelerate your business and bring you into either be able to lease an airplane or buy an airplane within 6 to 12 months. If you do it right, you're going to do that. I mean, I interviewed a gentleman recently, and he started flying a Cirrus, which is a small little propeller airplane. He flew it himself with an instructor, and the first year he used it, and he used it entirely for business, he tripled his business. Yeah, and now he's gone on to a turboprop, and I think that turboprop is going to probably 5 or 6 times his business. And then the goal is in a couple of years' time to be able to go out and buy his own jet. So he's using private aviation in a very intelligent manner. He's entered into the quantum economy, and he's, you know, accelerating his business, he's multiplying his business as a result of using the private jet as a business tool. So private jet charter is a really good way to start. So reach out to me on an email, we'll book you in for a call and come up with the right strategy, organize a few charters for you, get you flying private and on a few charters, and really start to use the aeroplane as a business tool. It's a great thing to do. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Biz Jet TV. Please subscribe to this channel. Lots of content on here, and check out this other video we did about why now is a time to buy a private jet. It's also a good time to buy a private jet if you've got that kind of money. So check this video out, where I also interviewed 3 different owners where they tell their story of how they bought the private jet, and they all say, I should have done this a lot sooner. And that's all from Fabrizio here on Biz Jet TV, and I'll see you on the next one.